Hello, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to British English Pod with me, Lewis. And today, for this week's episode, we're traveling back in time a little bit. Yes, we're winding back the clock and we're going to the past. So all of you can start reminiscing. To reminisce is like to speak about old memories with your friend, or maybe just to think about old memories with your friends. It's a way of being nostalgic because this week's topic is all about school. So we're thinking about our times at school. But before we get kicked off with the topic, let me know, in one word, how would you sum up your time at school? So, in a nutshell, how was your education? Well, let me begin by telling you a little bit about my time at school, and I'll go over the public education system in the United Kingdom because, of course, I am British. I went to school in the UK, and it all started when I went to nursery. So, nursery is like preschool, and it's before kindergarten or like daycare kind of thing. So, you go to nursery when I believe you're 3 or 4 years old. And then from there, you can also have the option of going to kindergarten, but that's a little bit more of an American term. And after that, you enter full-time primary school. And primary school in the UK is from the age of, I think, 4 years old to 11 years old. And this is obviously where you will get the beginning of your education. And I went to a school called Eldwick Primary School. And it's funny because this is actually the school where my mum worked for the vast majority of her working life. She used to work in a bank, but when she had me and my older sister, who's 2.5 years older than me, she wanted to spend more time with us. She wanted to be closer to her children because we were angels, of course. And if she had continued working at the bank, she would have been working a traditional 9 to 5 job. Whereas starting to work in reception as a receptionist at this primary school, she was able to take us to school because, well, she was going to the same place. And then she would finish work at around 3 o'clock. So when we finished school, she'd finish work. So she was able to work whilst we were at school, and then she could, well, look after us or take care of us after school. And I've been asking some of my students recently about how they manage in summer or during school holidays. Because for parents, if the mum and the dad have a full-time job and their children are off school in summer, it can be pretty difficult and it can be quite expensive because they need to find, well, if they're lucky, they'll have their mum or dad or family who can take care of their children. But this isn't always the case. If, for example, I started a family and had a child, my parents don't live here in Brussels, and my partner's parents don't live here in Brussels. So we would end up having to pay for some kind of daycare, and we'd have to pay for someone else to look after our kids. So this is a little bit of a troublesome issue. It's a bit of a difficult issue to work around because most parents have to take it in turns with their holidays. So the mum has 1 week of holiday and then looks after the kids. Then the dad has 1 week of holiday and looks after the kids. So it's pretty tricky. But anyway, um, let's focus on school and returning to school in the UK. Because after primary school, from 4 to 11, kids go to secondary school, which in many cases is also known as grammar school. And I went to a school called Bingley Grammar School. And during my school life, I always had to wear a school uniform, but the uniform at primary school was quite informal. I'd wear trousers and a sweatshirt and a polo shirt. But then when I started secondary school, we were forced to wear blazers. And blazers are like suit jackets. My blazer was burgundy. Burgundy is a color which is kind of a mixture between red and brown. So it wasn't very good looking. It wasn't the most stylish blazer ever. And then you'd have to wear it with a white shirt and also a burgundy tie. And at school, there were 4 houses, which is a little bit like Harry Potter. I'm not sure if this was an exception at our school, but we had 4 houses, and out of the 300 kids at school in each year, so it was a pretty big grammar school, maybe 2,000 children in total, and in every year there were between 250 and 300 students. And this number was divided into 4, just like the same thing happens in Harry Potter, where you have Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw. That's it. Good job I remembered, because there'll be some Harry Potter fans that would have been angry at me if I hadn't remembered. But I was in Milner, and Milner had like a burgundy and blue tie. Then some of my friends were in Oldfield, which was burgundy and yellow. Other friends were in Sunderland, and this was burgundy and green. And the last one was Wooler, which was burgundy and red. And I believe these are the names because there were 4 people that helped to either found the school or to develop the school. So, an interesting little fact. But I had a great time at secondary school, at grammar school. I'm still in touch with a lot of my best friends from secondary school, which is quite unique at my age. But I made long lasting friendships. It was a nice environment. We had lots of sports, but lots of events. There was very little bullying. Everybody was quite supportive. I remember watching the British series, which was called on Netflix, Adolescence. And I was horrified watching Adolescence to see the bullying and the rude, poor behavior from the children in the TV program. And I'm not sure how accurate a representation this is of the schooling system in the UK, because when I was at school, I remember everything being pretty good. The teachers were nice, the other students were nice. Of course, there were some outliers of kids who, well, didn't behave quite as well. But generally speaking, everybody was quite nice and supportive. And yeah, we had lots of fun. I made lots of friends. I did okay in most subjects, except maths. Maths has always been my weakness. I've always been terrible with numbers. So I remember getting A's and B's in all of my tests and exams. So I was, I'd say, of average intelligence. I was always smart enough, but I was never like one of the smartest people in school. And my weakness was just maths and some science like physics, also IT, information technology. I wasn't that good at that either. subjects that I was good in were, for example, languages, sport. I liked drama as well. And yeah, I was okay in English, but without being too good, without being amazing. And then when you're 16 in the UK, that is when your compulsory education finishes. So from that moment, you can choose if you want to leave school and end your time of school. And at that moment, you have the option of starting work. You can also go to college, which in the UK, college is not the same as university. University is maybe more academic and it's from the age of 18, whereas college is from the age of 16. And the things that you study at college tend to be a little bit less academic and more practical. So some of my friends who have now become joiners, electricians, plumbers, these kind of positions, they tended to go to college rather than staying on at school and going to sixth form. And sixth form is between 16 and 18 years old. And it's the time in your life when you start to be decisive. You start to have to make decisions. So, from studying all subjects in the syllabus, when you're 16, you choose 4 subjects that you want to focus on, bearing in mind what you might go on to study at university if you choose to go down that route. And of course, when you're 15, 16, most people have no idea what they want to do at uni and what they want to go on to do at sixth form. But it's an unusual situation to be in because you start to think, I was always terrible at maths, and now I don't have to study maths again. Come on! So, of course, I dropped maths. I dropped other subjects that I wasn't that interested in. For example, religion, like RE, religious education. I dropped music because I've never been very good with music myself. And I dropped a lot of subjects before, in the end, choosing to continue studying business, biology, Spanish, and sport. And I might have mentioned this before, but the reason why I chose these 4 subjects was because I was indecisive. I didn't know what I wanted to do in the future. So I came to the conclusion that it was better to keep my options available and open. So I thought, okay, business and Spanish could be kind of related because it allows me to learn a language whilst learning about the world of business. So these are very transferable skills. While I chose sport and biology because, well, I enjoyed sport and sport is a passion of mine, and biology is very related to sport. So if I wanted to become a PE teacher, a physiotherapist, a personal trainer, any one of these professions, I thought it would be beneficial for me to have studied not only sport, but also biology. And at this time, I remember sport was easy peasy. It was a walk in the park. It was a piece of cake. I aced it. I got a really high mark. I absolutely nailed it. I got an A, smashed it. Business in the first year, maybe it was because of the teacher that I had or the other classmates, but it wasn't that interesting. Perhaps I wasn't mature enough to understand these concepts, but it was all very theoretical. So we were learning so much about business theories without actually putting any of them into practice or learning about more practical tips that people might need if they want to enter the world of business. Um, So, after the first year of sixth form, I dropped business and continued with 3 subjects, which were Spanish, sport, and biology. And Spanish, it wasn't that easy for me, but I found it fun, and it was a way of disconnecting and allowing me to dream almost. Because I was thinking, oh, when I speak fluent Spanish, then I'll be able to go to Mexico. I'll be able to go to the Andes. I'll be able to travel all over the place and chat with these people in Spanish. So cool, isn't it? And I really did have to knuckle down in biology. Because biology, given that it is a science, it's more similar to other subjects that I struggled with. So, yeah, biology was hard work, but I managed to get a good mark in the end. And, well, that was the end of my school time. And I'm not going to bore you with my university time because that's not the focus of this podcast. But after you go to sixth form, then you become independent and, well, you go to uni. And in many cases, in the United Kingdom, lots of people will go out of their house. They will leave mum and dad's house and they'll go to study in a different city to live the first period of time of, well, independence and freedom and being away from mum and dad. It's like, yoo-hoo! I'm out of there. I'm never going back to mum and dad's house. Even though for many people, they do end up returning to mum and dad's house for a while after graduating. But we'll get onto that in another episode. So that is the school system in the United Kingdom. Let me know about the school system in your country. Is it similar? Do you usually stay in the same school all the time? Is the compulsory age for education higher or lower? What are the similarities and differences? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's start going over some different vocabulary and discussing some other questions. So, what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to quiz you. And you have to think of different words that are related to the classroom. And I'm going to describe a word related to the classroom. I'll give you a few seconds, and you have to, well, even if you're walking around or you're cooking in your kitchen, say it out loud. Scream it to me. It's like, yes, Lewis, I know the word. It is a ding. So, you ready? The first word. This is where the teacher writes most of the information in the classroom. So this is the place, the object, where the teacher writes most of the information. 3, 2, 1. It is a whiteboard, of course. A whiteboard. We can also say a blackboard if it is old-fashioned. And maybe if it's very modern, it could be an interactive whiteboard. Who knows? Okay, number 2. This is a circular object, which looks like the Earth. In every classroom, at least traditionally, we had one of these. So it is a circular object which looks like the Earth. 3, 2, 1. It is a globe. You can spin the globe around to see where you are in the world. And I don't know about you, but I love maps. You can see a map behind me. I love maps, so I also love globes. And looking around to see where different countries are, it's a pretty cool way of just, passing the time. Maybe it's just me who's a bit geeky with this, but it is true that I do like globes and maps. Okay, number 3. This is the thing you put all your pencils and pens in. This is the thing that you put all your pencils and pens in. 3, 2, 1. It is a pencil case. It's a pencil case, of course. Okay, number 4. This is used to draw straight lines. It's an object that is used to draw straight lines. It is a ruler. You use a ruler to draw straight lines. A ruler. Number 5. This is the furniture where you sit and study. This is the furniture where you sit and study. 3, 2, 1. This is your desk. You sit at your desk, both in an office, in a study, or in a classroom as well. Okay, number 6. This is the name given to other students in your class. This is the name given to other students in your class. 3, 2, 1. They are known as your classmates. Of course, I mentioned it earlier that I had really nice classmates. Now, I've forgotten the number we're on now. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 7. This is the name of the time between lessons when you can go outside and play. So this is the name of the time between lessons when you can go outside and play. And this word differs in British and American English. In American English, they would call it recess. Recess. However, in British English, we call it simply a break. You have a break or you have break time. The time between classes when you can go out and play. And this is when people would go to the playground, they'd get balls, they'd run around. If you walked past a school during break time, you'd just hear kids screaming and shouting. And you'd hear like an echo of kids screaming and shouting, like something like that, right? Okay, now we got 2 more. Number 8. This is the big bag you use to carry all your things. Maybe not that big, but it is a bag you use to carry your things. It is a backpack. It's a backpack, of course. Or you could say a rucksack. Now, last but not least, number 9. This is the name of the book where you have your information and exercises. There's the name of the book where you have your information and exercises. It is your textbook, or maybe your workbook. Textbook would have all the information, and a workbook would be a place where you would be able to do additional activities. So, how did you find it? That was a piece of cake, wasn't it? I think so. I think so. Now let me go over some other random conversation questions. A question for you. Did you ever cheat in an exam? Have you ever cheated in an exam? And you know, this is when you don't follow the rules. You copy in an exam. And there'll always be people who would try to do this. They would try to cheat in an exam. They might write down all of the answers on a piece of paper and then put it in their sock. Or maybe they'd just be looking over at other people to see if they could more or less see the answer. Or maybe they would use more creative ways of cheating in an exam. Perhaps if you had, I don't know, a pencil case, you might put the answers in the pencil case. Or maybe you'd write the answers on your forearm. So then when it came to the exam, you just have a quick look and answer them easily. I think most of us have done this. I must admit that I've never done it in a very, very obvious way, and I never got caught. I never got caught red-handed doing any of these things. But I definitely did at times when I was in a maths exam have a little look over to see if somebody else was on the same page of the exam as me. And I'd try and see, like, okay, what does that look like? Does that look like a 6 or a 7? And if I had absolutely no idea of the answer, well, you've just got to make it up. You've got to have a guess. So in these occasions, yes, you could argue that I tried to cheat, but I don't know how effective I was. Because, I never did it in a bad way. I never went into an exam with the intention of cheating. If then I see somebody else's results and I think, oh, look at that answer. That looks correct. That looks more correct than mine. Then I might cheat a little bit. So, yeah, that's what I'd say. I have probably cheated a little bit, but never too deliberately. Another question. Did you go to a private school or a public school? And, well, despite the fact that I said I went to a school called Bingley Grammar School, which sounds quite posh, and having 4 different houses, that's also quite a sign of being a posh school. The school that I went to was just a normal state school. My parents never paid for me to go to a private school, to a school that you had to pay for. And these do exist in the United Kingdom, but they're not that common, or they're common in wealthy areas, but not so much all over the country. And if you do go to a private school, the prices can be extortionate. Of course, there is a range, but I reckon if you have children in the UK and you want to send them to a private school, you're going to have to fork out like 10 grand a year, something along those lines. And when you start adding up this cost that your child will have to go to school for 15 years, 15 times 10 grand, that is 150 grand. And then if you have 2 children and you want to send them to the same school for the same amount of time, that's 300 grand. So I'm not surprised that my parents didn't send me to a private school because, I mean, they're not made of money. They didn't have all of this cash. No way. So, yeah, I went to a normal state school. Another question. Did you play for any of the school sports teams? And at school, our school was more focused on rugby than it was football. So while my favorite sport has always been football, we played a little bit of rugby, cricket, different sports at school. And I remember that I had never played rugby ever in my life before I went to secondary school. And then it was kind of encouraged. I feel like the school saw rugby as being like more of a gentleman's sport, a sport with more honor than football. So everybody started playing. Some people were good at it, other people weren't so good at it. I luckily was quite good at it, or at least I had the stamina and the endurance and the strength to be good at it because I was pretty tall when I was at school. I think I grew before a lot of other people. So then when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, I was one of the taller ones, and that gives you quite a big advantage when playing a very physical sport such as rugby. So I ended up being pretty good at rugby, but I had to quit. And the reason why I quit was because after playing against different schools and reaching the age of 15, 16, I noticed that every time I played rugby, the opponents were getting bigger and more aggressive. And I stopped growing, and everybody else seemed to continue growing. And I'm not short. I'd say I'm average height, like 180 centimeters. Um, so I could defend myself, but I was looking at other towering students who were the same age as me, apparently, but they were like 2 meters tall. And they were big, they were muscly, they were buff, and playing rugby became more and more painful. So I remember when I was 16, I had to pack it in. I had to pack it in, which means basically to quit because it was getting too painful. And I'd have bruises around my legs, different like cuts and scrapes. But yeah, I played rugby and football for the school sports team because I was always pretty good without being amazing. And I still remember a lot of these times now, which is pretty cool. It's pretty nice to reminisce and look back on these times. And speaking about reminiscing and being nostalgic, what things do I miss about my time at primary, secondary, or high school? Well, there are quite a lot of things that I miss because it was nice, in particular, walking to school and walking back from school with my best mates. We'd always do that together. So it was very, very sociable. And we'd end up playing games. We'd try and flirt with the girls. We'd be organizing different parties for the weekend. So that was a nice aspect. In terms of the subjects and the classes, do I miss it? Probably not. Like, I'll have random memories about different moments in class that'll come back to me now as I'm trying to remember my time at school. But while I had a very positive experience at school, I don't miss it. I don't miss being forced to go to different classes every single day. And I don't miss the feeling of going from history to geography, and then geography to maths, and then maths to music, and being encouraged to study hard and get good marks in different exams in things that I was never that interested in. So, what I miss about school is just the contact with my classmates and the fact that you are always connecting with other people. You were always in contact with them. Everybody was in the same situation. We were all in the same boat. And like I said, I wasn't bullied. I was pretty popular at school. So I was in almost a privileged position. Um, and that's why I look back on it nowadays and think, ah, that was great. I had a lovely time at school. So I hope you had a similarly good time at school. And from there, let's have a look at some phrasal verbs because I've got 10 phrasal verbs that are more or less related to school. And now I'm sharing my screen. And we're going to work out how these phrasal verbs match some different definitions or short synonyms. So, if you've just been listening up until now, I would recommend that for 5 minutes you start watching this video and see if you are able to match these phrasal verbs before I'm able to do it myself. So on the left-hand side, you can see the phrasal verbs. On the right-hand side, you can see these synonyms or short definitions. I'm going to read the ones on the left, and I want you to read and just scan the meanings. So number 1 is to be into. Number 2 is to knuckle down. Number 3 is to fall behind. Number 4 is to catch up with. Number 5 is go over. Number 6 is read up on. Number 7 is hand in. Number 8 is hand out. Number 9 is copy out. And number 10 is drop out. So let's see if we can match them. I am into sport. There you have a perfect example. If I say I am into sport, I mean I'm interested in it. I like it. So we're going to match be into with be interested in. Number 2, knuckle down. I said that with biology, I really had to knuckle down because it was harder than sport or Spanish for me. So to knuckle down, what does it mean if you are knuckling down in class or with a subject? Well, to knuckle down is to start working or studying extremely hard. I had to knuckle down in biology classes because it was a really tough subject for me. Good. Now we've got 3 and 4, and they're opposites. So number 3 is fall behind, and number 4 is catch up with. And both of them can also be used with races, if we're speaking about like running races. If, for example, I am sick for a few months and I don't attend classes, it is likely, well, it's inevitable that I will fall behind, which is to make less progress than other people. Then the opposite, if I start attending classes again and knuckling down, I will hopefully catch up with my classmates. In that case, I will improve to reach their level. Good job. And number 5 is one that I use again and again. It is go over. I sincerely hope that you go over these phrasal verbs after watching or listening to this podcast. I hope you will go over them. Yes, I hope you will review them. I hope you will check them. You will go over them. Now, number 6, read up on. Recently, I've been reading up on the relationship between A and B. This one's kind of self-explanatory. To read up on something is essentially to read about it, to study or learn about it, using books or articles. I'm reading up on the 2008 financial crash, for example. And number 7 and 8, again, are opposites. We have hand in and hand out. So, if you hand in your homework, it means that you've finished it and you're giving it to a teacher. Therefore, to hand in is to submit or give finished work to a teacher. Hand out, on the other hand, is what the teacher is doing. If they are distributing different copies to people, you can hand out the worksheets to all of the class. You're giving something to everyone. Awesome. Now we've only got 2 left. We have copy out and drop out. I hope that maybe you've decided to copy out these phrasal verbs. That means, really, to take notes, to make a copy. So to copy out is to write something how it was written, or basically just to take notes. So the teacher might say, everybody, make sure you copy out the date and the title. Then last but not least, to drop out is what, well, apparently a lot of successful millionaires and entrepreneurs do. They drop out of university. This means that they stop going to university. They drop out. They quit. So to drop out of school is to quit school. To drop out of university is, well, to quit university. So there we have 10 phrasal verbs that are more or less related to our topic of school. How about now we try to fill in the gaps? So remember, these are our phrasal verbs: be in, knuckle down, fall behind, catch up on, go over, read up on, hand in, hand out, copy out, and drop out. Now we have some gap fill exercises. Now, I'm going to read each one out once, and then the second time I will read it out again with the answer. You have to try to use the phrasal verbs, and well, think of which phrasal verbs make sense with each sentence. Number 1. The teacher all of the worksheets yesterday. You should have it. The teacher handed out all of the worksheets yesterday. You should have it. Number 2. Let's all of the lines. We need to rehearse before the play. Rehearse is to practice, by the way, like practice for a dance or a play, something dramatic, a performance. So let me repeat. Let's go over all of the lines. We need to rehearse before the play. Let's review them. And number 3. English literature. I am obsessed with Shakespeare. What could it be? It is, are you into English literature? I'm obsessed with Shakespeare. Not true, by the way. I'm not obsessed with Shakespeare. Now, number 4. We need to now. The deadline is in just a few days. We need to now. The deadline is just in a few days. We need to work hard. So we need to knuckle down now. The deadline is in just a few days. We need to work hard, study hard. We need to knuckle down. Number 5. My teacher told me to with my classmates or I'll fail the exam. So you're going to be unsuccessful, you're going to fail, and it's related to your classmates. So maybe you need to reach the level of your classmates. So here's the answer. My teacher told me to catch up with my classmates or I'll fail the exam. Good, to reach their level. Number 6. She her essay with just minutes remaining. This meaning is that she gave it to her teacher. So she handed in her essay with just minutes remaining. Number 7. I've been informed that my son has recently and needs a private tutor. I've been informed that my son has Recently and needs a private tutor. So this one's the opposite of catch up with. But maybe the son hasn't been paying attention or studying a lot. So I've been informed that my son has fallen behind recently and needs a private tutor. He's fallen behind. He's not at the same level as his colleagues, his classmates. Number 8. We always sentences from our workbook, but I hate writing. Okay. So it's from your workbook, you hate writing, so it's related to taking notes. Therefore, we always copy out sentences from our workbook, but I hate writing. Number 9. It's amazing how many millionaires. University. I gave you a hint for this one earlier. So, here's the answer. It's amazing how many millionaires dropped out of university. Good. Now the last one. Number 10. My teacher has told all of us to the Second World War before the exam. This one is to research or investigate, to learn or study by reading. My teacher has told all of us to read up on the Second World War before the exam. Good job, everybody! Good job! Hopefully, you will be able to learn all of these phrasal verbs and maybe go over them in the near future, so then you can put them into practice. Now, before we finish, let me just discuss some other random opinions and questions related to the topic. The first opinion that I can discuss is that your time at school is the most fun. It's the best time of your life. Now that depends. I don't think it's the best time of your life. And a lot of adults, when we're busy and stressed, we can complain about our obligations, our duties, our responsibilities, and then a common phrase is, I wish I was a little kid again. I wish I was a teenager again. I didn't have any of these responsibilities. I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to listen to my boss. I didn't have to pay taxes. It's a common thing for people to say, but I personally think that the best time of your life is, well, this is going to sound a little bit philosophical. The best time of your life is when you are able to be with your loved ones and you're able to pause and to take a moment to rest and relax, assess the situation, and appreciate the little things. So I could say that school was amazing because I spent so much time with all of my friends. University was fantastic because it was the first time I was fully independent, spending time with new people and getting to know new people. Then my 20s have been amazing because I traveled, I was working, I was paying my own bills for the first time. And then maybe my 30s will be even better because I'm slowly earning more money. I'm starting to overcome these big milestones in life. Maybe I'll have a young family in the near future. So I think the key is to be able to take a moment and think, wait, actually, this is a pretty good time in my life as well. And it's a good self reminder because sometimes I can be too preoccupied and stressed about different things happening when maybe it would be a good idea to just breathe, pause, and appreciate the little things. It's all about, what's the term? Like being present. There's a term for it. Being mindful. It's all about being mindful in the moment. And that is what will really lead you to happiness. I assume. I'm not sure. I'm no expert. Okay, now another one. Tests and exams are focused on memorization, not actually on learning. You see, there are a lot of critics to the current education system. Many people will criticize how school and the education system is set up at the moment. And to a certain degree, I do agree with them because I don't think that school prepares you in the best way to be ready for adult life. And a lot of the subjects that we study and the topics within the subjects maybe aren't that useful in your day to day. Again, I'm a bit of a maths hater, and I think we should all learn maths, but then there are other aspects of maths like Pythagoras and fractions and all of this kind of stuff that honestly just went in one ear and out the other ear. They just went over my head. So I was forced to memorize lots of these things when I wasn't actually learning to put these things into practice. And the biggest example is with business. I mentioned earlier that I studied business during my A levels when I was at sixth form, and I was kind of motivated and excited about this topic because I thought it'd be really interesting to see what real businesses are doing in the world and try out our own techniques. But in the end, I just had to read a book, answer questions, write essays, and memorize different information without really learning. So I do think that the education system in many countries does need a little bit of a facelift and it needs to be changed. So there's more practical practice rather than just memorizing and doing exams. But maybe that's just the case in the United Kingdom. Let me know if you agree with me and if you think that in your country, tests and school is focused too much on exams and getting certificates. And we'll finish with one final thing to discuss. Teachers. They have the best job ever, right? So many holidays. You only work until 3 o'clock. It's the dream, isn't it? And now I'm not including myself as a teacher per se, because I work in the private sector. I teach adults only. So, yes, I'm teaching and I'm working in education. But I'm not the stereotypical teacher, as you might have realized by this point. What I mean is primary and secondary school teachers. Do you think they have one of the best jobs ever? I would say that being a teacher is a fantastic job. It's a very rewarding job. You do have a lot of perks, a lot of advantages in that you have very long holidays. And it's very nice to be in touch with people in your job. I'm not naturally the most sociable person, but having said that, I like having a sociable job. And this is something that teachers have as well. But at least in the United Kingdom, I don't think teachers are paid well enough. And they should be paid a lot more because at the end of the day, they are developing our future in the younger generation. And they have to deal with a lot of stress and a lot of difficult parents who might meddle and interfere with the education system, which isn't appropriate. And then, yeah, there's all the marking and all of this lesson planning that I think people who aren't teachers don't realize how much work goes into being a teacher before you teach a class and after you teach a class. And if you work in another job, maybe you just have your 9 to 5 and then you can completely switch off after it. Whereas if you're a teacher, it's very hard to actually do that. So I think teachers have a great job. It's not the best job in the world, but it's definitely better than the majority, in my opinion. But I doubt I'll ever work in a school. I enjoy being a teacher, but an English teacher online teaching adults who are motivated to improve their English. And if you would like to improve your English with me and you'd like to take classes with me, then I'll leave a link in this video description so you can either book private classes with me if you want to, or you can join my British English Immersion Club, which is full of like-minded, motivated students of B1, B2, and C1 level, and every week we discuss a different topic. This week in class, we have been discussing the topic of school. So, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask me. I hope you enjoyed this rather long podcast today. You can tell I like the topic, and I'll see you in the next video. So thanks again, and see you next time, guys. Bye bye.